Welcome to Let's Plant Houses, the podcast where we talk about some incredible families' journeys. I'm your host, Wendy Ernzen, and whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or just someone simply seeking to understand more about this journey, you're in the right place. Today, I have Rachelle joining us on the show today, sharing her family story. So thank you so much for being here today.
You're so welcome.
So if you wouldn't mind just starting by telling us a little bit about your family, that would be great.
Sure. So my family is different than it was 20 years ago, but I have two boys, and the oldest is Ethan, and he's neurotypical. Mm-hmm. And then my youngest is Anthony, and he has what they used to call Asperger's syndrome. It's a form of autism, what they consider being more higher functioning. I'm married now. I'm divorced from their father, and we live in Plymouth.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so would you mind sharing a little bit about how you knew, or how you thought that maybe Anthony might have had something different?
Yeah. So I was a special ed teacher for 20 years. Okay. Yeah, in Farmington Public Schools. But I worked with kids that had severe behavioral issues. I don't know if they still say it, but at the time they had a diagnosis, I guess, of emotionally impaired. And so right out of college, I worked at a lockup center for 10 years. I mean, it was, that's the type of population I was working with. And I always say it was almost like the perfect storm. The year he was diagnosed, I was getting divorced. Mm-hmm. I was moved into a high school, but still working with that same population. And they didn't know what to do with the kids that were higher functioning autism, so putting them in the classroom. So right before that, though, for me to get him diagnosed, to take the test and everything, I just started seeing some things that were a little different from his brother. For example, he had a huge sensitivity to sound.
Okay.
So if a car, drove by that, was maybe a muffler wasn't, doing well, went off, he would put his hands to his ears.
How old was he at this point?
I'd say about 3.
Okay.
2, 3.
Okay.
A toilet, I remember going into a really old church, and the toilets were really old, and we flushed it. It was super loud and echoey, and he was screaming, and motorcycles, things like that. He would line things up. Mm-hmm. He was, we thought it was so cute. We'd go in his room and move something, and he'd move it back. And
right.
We'd play this little game, not knowing what was really going on. He was flapping when he ran. He was, flapping. And again, I thought it was cute. I had no idea. Although maybe I'm thinking something's a little different. But he spoke when he was supposed to speak. He had an allergy to peanuts, but I hear all these horror stories about they don't sleep and they're screaming. And he had fits, he had meltdowns, but it wasn't, like a lot of other people that I know have children on the spectrum.
Right.
But what really did it was I went to go see him at his preschool, and he was playing with other kids. They were playing. He was off the side, like looking at puzzle pieces. And yes. And I just kept thinking, what is the deal? Mm-hmm. So I was talking to his preschool teacher, and she said, I think he might have Asperger's. And here at that time, I have a master's degree in ed psych. I'm a special ed teacher, and I'd never heard the word.
Right.
So it was very shocking. And, like any parent, immediately get on the internet and you're reading every single thing you can, and I'm freaking out.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is lifelong. This is not going to go away. And the other thing that kept going through my mind is that I knew, being a special ed teacher, that when kids get done with school, there's very little out there for them.
Yep.
And so, when I was talking about that perfect storm, I had just moved to a high school working with the same population. They're putting these kids in my room.
Oh, yeah. So you're seeing what's happening next,
yes,
or not.
Exactly. And I think that was the difference, from some of my friends or people I knew had children on the spectrum, was that it was ignorance. They didn't know. I knew, like the parents I would be talking to would say to me 6 years later, they're playing in the basement, video games, and nothing's changing, and there's nothing to look forward to. There's nothing out there. It's like we fell off a cliff. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Right.
The other thing was that, I said I was going through a divorce. My own family was really getting uncomfortable around him.
Okay.
Which is, I hear more and more of that. And for a long time, I didn't tell people about it because I was embarrassed, but I share everything now because, as we were talking earlier, you feel like you are so alone.
You do.
So I want people to know this is what I went through. And if you're going through it, it's not your shame.
That's right.
And I'm good with it now. But at the time I was so angry.
You're overwhelmed too.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I remember going through this divorce and, crying in bed thinking, God, why would you give him me as a mother?
Right.
I'm never going to, if I die, it does not look like people are going to come out and say, I got this. And so I would see a homeless person. I would be thinking, oh my gosh, do they have autism? Is this my son's future? But what ended up happening is I went back to school and got a second master's in autism.
Wow.
Right. So I'm divorced. I'm working full time, plucking away at these classes. And I kept thinking that if I do this, maybe I'd be able to help navigate his future a little bit better. So I got done with it and I started running social skill programs at a library every Sunday. And I didn't charge families. And it was for selfish reasons too. My son had no friends. And it was a way to help them all, social skills, but create friendships.
But it also sounds like you noticed in your community that wasn't available.
Right. And exactly, because if there was, I wouldn't have did it.
Right.
I was looking for everything and this didn't exist. So what ended up happening is I did it for about 1.5 years and it was growing. This group was growing. It was mostly boys. Mm-hmm. And I just kept thinking, well, I can just keep doing this. But when he graduates from school, he's going to be like everyone else.
That's right.
And I'm sure like you, you're researching everything and looking for everything that's available. And I could see nothing that would work for him when he got done with school. So I ended up just taking a huge leap of faith and I quit my job. And I had no money except I had this beautiful home that my ex-husband and I had built. And it was in Livonia, and I'll probably never live in a home this nice again, but I sold it and I moved us into a really humble home. I wouldn't invite people over. I was so embarrassed of this home. But what it did was it allowed me to open the doors to living and learning. And so I have a nonprofit that we work with teens and adults. Mm-hmm. We do it with social skills and friendship programs, but our biggest focus is employment and vocational work, skill building. And but my goal has always been, I don't want to say independent living because not everyone would be able to live independently, but
maybe for those who need it.
Right. And
Or works for them.
Exactly. And so I need to come up with a different word, almost like the perfect living situation for you.
Yes.
What will work for you.
Yes.
So.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like your life probably changed a bit it sounds like it when Anthony was diagnosed. So,
yeah.
And so you basically changed the whole trajectory of your life based on that.
I know. I think about this because what I wanted to do was go back to school, get a second. Well, my first master's was leading towards this, but I wanted to work with women prisoners. I wanted to help them reunite with their kids. And so that's where I was going. But God had a different plan. And I get it now. I think about this. Everything that was going on, had one of those things not have been going on, like my family situation or the divorce or moving into that classroom, I never would have did what I did. It was almost like I was backed against this wall. And it was like, you better do something. And that's how I felt. And so that's why I did this. And I had this attitude that there was no other option. So when you teach, every couple of years, you have to renew your license. And I remember mine came up my first year starting living and learning. And I ripped it up because I thought, if I do this, I'm always going to be thinking in the back of my head, if this doesn't work, you have a fallback plan. And I didn't want that. I had to have like this intense vision that there is no other option. You've got to make this work.
So what year did you start living and learning?
2015.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even a 10-year-old organization, because I don't know if our listeners know much about living and learning, but so first of all, I'm going to guess that this is truly your Plant a House moment was starting this organization, because that's where you had to make the impossible possible, not only for your son, but for so many people that so many people that you had met along the way.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about what living and learning offers, because I don't even think I know.
Okay. So when I opened the doors in 2015, I started with a Friday night hangout. Mm-hmm. I wanted a place for these young adults to be able to say, hey, I'm going to the hangout on Friday night. Because what I would see in my classrooms and with my son is that they weren't doing anything on the weekends. But especially if you're that higher functioning, which, forgive me if that, I don't want to in any way offend anyone. I know everyone's got their special words for this. So let's give each other grace.
Exactly.
Right. But for that population, what I see is that they're watching their older siblings live normal lives, going on dates, going to parties and having friends, and they're not.
Right.
So it's hard for the parent to watch it, but I can't even imagine like watching my siblings having this life and I'm not doing anything.
Right.
So I wanted something where it's every Friday night. It wasn't in a church basement or a YMCA, that it was this cool place. I had all this furniture because I had moved. And so I painted this building, really bright colors and calming colors. And I wanted it to be where you just wanted to be there, looking really hip. And so what I started with was, and we still have it, it's a 3-hour program. So every Friday, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you come in and we do a little bit of, there's an agenda just because for some people that really eases anxiety, but you don't have to do any of it. So we order pizza, we play a couple games to interact with people so you can meet people. There's a talent show, they're doing karaoke. We're located on this beautiful estate. So we've got putt-putt there and we've got animals there and, lots of sports are going on. So now we have Friday and Saturday night hangout. But that's how it started with me thinking this independent living thing. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that was the whole goal. And then I started looking at all these young adults and I started thinking none of them are working. Mm-hmm. And so whatever that looks like, if I can help them in some way work, that was the second thing I did. So at that time I couldn't afford to hire anyone. So, I'm cleaning toilets, answering phones and marketing this the best way I can. And then I started this job skills program where I went and I partnered with like Mayberry Farm and a couple senior citizen homes and eventually Fresh Time. And I would bring these young adults and just do skill building and, appropriate conversations and what's not and dressing. And so I'm doing that with them. And then I finally got to a point where I could hire someone and that grew. And now it's just so crazy to say this, that we now have a program that's all they do is employment to get people paying jobs. And they've placed over 130 people in paying jobs.
That's incredible.
Isn't that awesome? And then we've got our vocational program, our VOC program, and that's our biggest program where we have 170 people. We have a waiting list for that. But all
waiting
they
list
do,
to get into the program?
Just that program,
Got it.
correct.
Okay.
And it's one job coach to every 3 to 4 members, and we've got over 100 different community partners. So every day they go to a different business site and learn the skills they need. And the goal is that they'll get into the job department and get paying jobs. But a lot of people want to just stay there. And that's okay, that they just want to have a life where they are doing something meaningful every day. Right. And what I've noticed with that, I'm constantly asking questions of the people at 10 Living Learning. And one of the best answers I ever got was that what it did for this person was that at dinner time, they were able to have conversations about their day. So where before they had nothing to contribute to this conversation.
Right. Maybe they were playing video games all day or whatever they chose to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's just beautiful. And then now we have a program for people that need one-on-one support. So, and the goal is for them to get into the vocational program. But for them, how we do it a little different. We do a lot of life skills. So we've got a little house on the property where they, cooking and hygiene and baking. And
so they need just a little bit more support.
Exactly. But they still go in the community twice a day and do skill building at different businesses, but it's for shorter periods of time, for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening or afternoon.
So are these types of programs for young adults who have now aged out of the school system?
That's our focus.
So if I'm still in school, obviously this wouldn't be the time. It'd be after I transition out of I'm going to say transition out of the transition, but the post-secondary programs, or do people do both?
It's both. So all of our our social skill programs, like our Friday and Saturday night hangout, people come, right?
I meant like the vocational program.
The vocational, I would say yes, but I've got people that have gone to their transition program and decided that they weren't getting what they wanted out of it, so they come to us.
Got it. Mm-hmm. It makes a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you said how many people are in the vocational program?
I think it's 170.
Wow.
I know. And they're coming for all of the programs. They're coming from 9 different counties, 72 different cities. It's incredible.
The need is incredibly big. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. So I guess, what are your plans for the future?
I'm constantly thinking about the living piece.
And don't hold back, because Rachelle, I know you're a visionary.
Yeah.
So don't hold back.
Okay.
So tell us about it.
I appreciate that because it can sound crazy.
Nope, it doesn't to me.
But, and this is why I keep telling people, no one ever thought we would move to where we are. We're on an estate of 12 acres, and there's a mansion there and 6 buildings. I mean, so.
And you have a farm.
We have a farm,
all
alpacas,
kinds of
chickens,
things.
bunnies.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's, you know what, you have to think big. Mm-hmm. So my vision, my goal is there's apartments right across the street from Living and Learning. And we've got 4 people living there right now.
Okay.
Yeah, if we had 5, my son just moved back home about 3 weeks ago. But I almost see it like the villages in Florida for senior citizens.
Yeah.
Because what it is right now is it's its own community.
Okay.
So there's beautiful walking paths. It's off like this huge pond. I should almost call it like a little lake. And they have a little bowling alley there. Mm-hmm. They have a beautiful pool, tennis courts, a workout center. So that is my vision. And the last person that moved in there, it's just this cool story where her aunt lives in Northville. And she heard about us. And so she reached out and started telling me that she has a niece that lives in India.
Okay.
Her mom is white and her dad is Indian. Mm-hmm. And they live there and she has autism. So I did a Zoom meeting with them. And I said to them, I know we can get her a job. So they flew out from India.
Wow.
We got her a job, a full-time job. And then she moved into the apartments. And she still comes to we have a program called Girl Talk. We have art programs, and she comes to those programs. And I think she does the hangout. And she has a full-time job, and her parents moved back to India.
Wow.
I know. So it's everything I had envisioned because.
So you're creating a meaningful life for each person, and they can opt in and out of the programs that are not appropriate, but that speak to them. That
and what is it that I'm not doing that would benefit you? So at one time we had a bird watching club. This young adult, like that was his passion.
Sure.
Right. So I want that. It's because if it means something to you, it's going to mean something to someone else too.
Right.
And the biggest issue is always transportation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Michigan is, yes,
I know.
Southeast, yeah.
But what's great about this is Northville is very walkable.
Okay.
So these apartments, and I piloted this on my own son.
Right.
So if I made a mistake, it was my own kid. So when I first moved to this estate, I lived myself in that guest house for 2.5 years. And then my son moved across the street to the apartments. I was 42 seconds away from him. So every morning I would pick him up, 6 a.m., drive him to work. 3 o'clock, I'd pick him up, drive him home.
Okay. And
I just started looking at this going, this is exactly, what these people need. I mean, they can walk to downtown, to Starbucks, to restaurants, to stores. My son walked downtown and became a Mason. He joined the Masons.
That is
I know.
So wild.
I know. I mean, they're not to.
Now, is there a grocery store in downtown?
Yep, there's a grocery store there.
So it's basically when they talk about I think it's called the 20-minute neighborhoods. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's like a whole urban planning philosophy, but it's that the perfect neighborhoods, everything's within a 20-minute walk.
Yes.
And it sounds like that is exactly what you're designing, which is ideal for any community.
Perfect, yeah. And with him, what we taught him to do was you can get where they deliver groceries to you.
Oh, yeah.
So that worked out perfect.
Yeah.
But he would walk to this Masons Club, and it was so crazy to me that he's a huge conspiracy theory person. So I don't know if that was it, but they were all older men.
Yeah.
So I pick him up one Monday, and it's older men walking out, and he's saying to him, Bob, tell your wife that dip was great. I'll see you next Monday. It's like he found his people.
Yeah, you're like, all of a sudden they're going to be playing like Pinnacle. It's great.
Right. But whatever makes you happy.
Yes.
Right. And that's the piece. And yeah, I don't want to be like Northville, because.
But you're creating a community.
Northville has been amazing. They have just opened their arms to this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not from Northville.
And they didn't have to.
No, they did not have to. And everyone, I just can't even stress enough how much, every piece of furniture we have there has been donated. Mm-hmm. We had a gentleman come in. His company is called Imagine Design. And he came in one day and said, I want to put a putt-putt course here. And he did. And it's the most beautiful putt-putt course. It's 4 holes, did it all for free.
And how busy is that?
It's people are there every day.
Right.
And we open the gates, we let people come in. We want the community in there so it's inclusive.
Yep.
So people are in there all the time, playing with our animals and playing putt-putt. And my people are in there playing putt-putt with them.
Right.
And so it's just this beautiful thing.
That is amazing. And I'm so excited to hear like what's going to happen with the living, I guess the living center. I don't know what you call it. I'm sorry, because it is called the Living and Learning Center. But have you guys thought about what those apartments would be considered or called?
I don't know what they'll be called, but I am just constantly going anywhere to tell my story, so that what I'm hoping is that someone's going to be living a similar life that has the means to help me. I'll do all the work. I just need someone to help me do this piece of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So, so with your vast experience and knowledge, having gone through, this part of the journey, because I think you're still on it.
Yeah.
And thank goodness you are.
Thank you.
How are you sharing, in addition to what you're doing at the Living Learning Center, is there anything else you're sharing, what you've learned with others? Or,
I tell people all the time that, and I'm going to say it now, that if there's anything I can ever do to support you or you have a question, don't ever hesitate to email me. I'll come and give you a tour of the property, whatever it is. If you're thinking about starting your own nonprofit, I had so many people support me in the beginning and help me on this journey, and I want to do the same. So that piece of it. But the other thing is we have a parent support group that meets once a month.
okay.
So we bring in people all the time so if someone's saying to me, I really am looking for a financial advisor that can help me with, we bring someone in, and it's free. So we serve wine and crackers. I just am trying to do whatever I can to support families that are living the life I'm living.
Amazing. So I guess for families new on this journey, what advice might you give them?
I would join as many different, maybe Facebook groups as you can, because you feel alone, especially in the beginning. And even when your family is the very best family in the world, they're not living that life.
That's right.
So join things where you are with your people in your community. And the other thing, people might disagree with me, but I think like the bombardment of services, you can tailor them off. But I just remember feeling like I would have never known that this would have helped him had I not tried this, or I tried every single thing, and not everything worked.
That's right.
But the earlier, the better.
Right. And it is hard because you don't know. You
Right.
don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Exactly.
Even if and I know it's like a balance between being tired.
Yeah.
And because you can get exhausted after looking at so
my
many different
gosh.
things.
Yeah, overwhelmed.
But you also, I remember when Nicola was, I'll say she was 14 and she was having some difficulties. And what we eventually discovered after pushing and pushing, she had a binocular dysfunction, which is an eye dysfunction. She needed prism glasses. And once she did that, she went from first grade reading to fifth.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's that kind of thing, like you just don't know.
You have to try everything.
That's right.
And what might work for you isn't going to work for someone else. These kids are so different.
Right. But you have to keep trying.
You do.
Well, I don't know if there's, did I miss anything? Because I feel like we covered so much already in this conversation. Is there anything else, any last things you wanted to share?
I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I'm sincere when I say, if you have any desire to try something to help this community, reach out to me. I will, sit and talk to anyone because it helps everyone. It always happens where I'm helping someone else and ends up helping me.
Right.
So
or
please
10 other
reach out.
people.
Exactly.
That just
and
haven't
that's
articulated
how this happens.
it. Yeah.
We all need to be helping each other to rise. This need is so great.
It is. And thank you. Thank you for bringing this to people's attention and for all the work that you and all of the people at Living and Learning Center do. It's incredible.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah. So for those of you listening in, thank you again so much for joining us today. I also hope you'll consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing this podcast with others who find it meaningful. And join us next time on Let's Plant Houses. Take care.